In 2022, we celebrate 130 years of HBCU football. On December 27th, 1892, Livingstone and Biddle College, now known as Johnson C. Smith University, played in Salisbury, North Carolina, with Biddle winning 5-0. Over time, HBCU football has evolved. HBCU football's popularity continues to rise. Millions attend games each year and millions more watch on television. The HBCU bands provide some of the top entertainment in the country. Over that time, some of the best players to ever play in the National Football League played at HBCUs. Every Monday through Friday on the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, national radio and television host Donal Ware takes a look at what's happening in HBCU football and talks with coaches, players, administrators, and media about the 2022 season. Make sure you join the conversation on social media by using the hashtag HBCU130. Now, here's your host, Donal Ware.
You've got it locked to the HBCU Football Daily Podcast for today, Friday, November 18th. I'm Donal Ware. It's Friday! We've got a game for you. I think that may surprise a lot of people. Maybe not. I mean, there's a number of different games you can look at because there's a number of different scenarios that you can look at. I mean, in that SWAC Western Division, it is up in the air right now because, I mean, if Prairie View A&M beats Valley, which it should, then there are no tiebreaker scenarios. But let's say Prairie View A&M wins, and then let's say Alcorn wins. Let's say Texas Southern wins. You got a three-way tie. Let's say Southern wins on Thanksgiving, then you'd have a four-way tie, and you've got a bunch of different scenarios. I mean, you can look at that. You can look at that. The game I would probably look at more than that game, any of those games would be the Morgan State and Howard game. The reason being, Howard wins a share of the MEAC championship. I would have never thought that going back some 4 or 5 weeks ago, but it is the truth. North Carolina Central has already punched its ticket to Atlanta, but still, the Bison right there with the chance for a share of the crown. For me, the HBCU National Game of the Week is A&T at Gardner Webb. Reason being is because it is for all the marbles. The winner of this game wins the Big South Championship and gets the automatic berth to the FCS playoffs. Now, if it is Gardner Webb that wins this game, and let's say A&T loses, A&T would then be 7-4. Could A&T get an at-large berth to the FCS playoffs? Of course, the winner gets an automatic berth. Could A&T get an at-large berth? 4 losses, a 7-4 record, 7 straight wins. Losing to a team that at the current time was 5-5, even though Gardner Webb has played a couple of FBS opponents and it was in some ball games. I don't know. That's tough. That would be tough. And then if A&T wins, then A&T would get the automatic bid. And I don't think a 5-6 record Gardner Webb would get into the FCS playoffs. So all the marbles are on the line in this football game. Let's take a look at some of the matchups. When I look at Gardner Webb, and let's start with Gardner Webb from an offensive perspective. Gardner Webb has the ability to run the football, but I think where Gardner Webb excels is in the passing game. Gardner Webb is phenomenal when you're talking about in the passing game, and I'm gonna give you those numbers. The quarterback, Fisher Bailey, now threw for 372 yards last week in the win over Campbell. You look at Bailey's completing 66% of his passes, 2,594 yards, 17 touchdowns. He's got 9 interceptions on the season. So there's an opportunity maybe for A&T to maybe pick him off because he's thrown 9 interceptions on the season. I mean, it's not awful, but it's high. It's a number of interceptions that he's thrown this season. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that defense a little bit later on. I had a chance to talk with Trey Lamb, the head football coach at at Gardner Webb, and he appropriately pointed out to me, which I never thought about. You look at the sacks, you say, okay, well, Gardner Webb has given up 33 sacks this year. Yeah, but quite a bit of those were to the two FBS opponents, which Liberty, and I forget the other opponent, which Gardner Webb had the football last with an opportunity to tie or win the game. So only, I think he said maybe 8 sacks against non-FBS, in the last, half of the season. So that's pretty good. I look at this team in terms of from a receiving perspective. This kid, TJ Luther, watch out for him. 1,010 yards receiving, 19.8 yards per reception, 7 touchdowns, but he's not the only one. Cottrell Haywood, 617 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns. He's also the leading receiver, although he only averages 9.6 yards per reception. So he's more of a guy that's going to give you an opportunity, more of a possession receiver. Again, running game is solid. When I look at the A&T defense, is solid in terms of at the linebacker position. When you look at Jacob Roberts, he's one of the best. He's got weeks with back-to-back interception pick sixes. You look at Tyquan King, another linebacker. Joseph Stuckey's really good. They're strong there. Up front, A&T is really, really good. They're going to stop the run. The Aggies are going to stop the run. There's no doubt about that, but that's not the concentration for Gardner Webb. So the Aggies are going to have to put pressure on the quarterback in the name of Jermaine McDaniel and Devin Harrell. You also have Philip Daniel, who can also, or Henry Daniel, who can also rush the quarterback as well. So you have that dynamic. I think A&T has to put a lot of pressure on that Gardner Webb defense if it wants to have any success. And the Aggies, couple of things. The Aggies are susceptible to the pass, 1. 2, Karan Prunty, top corner, may be out for this game. He got injured in the game in the win over Charleston Southern. You got Aaron Harris on the other side, some other guys that are good, but the Aggies have been susceptible in that defensive secondary. When I look at A&T from an offensive perspective, listen, Gardner Webb stops the run too, not as good or not as well as the Aggies, but they look to stop the run as well. Bashal to them. As a matter of fact, Trey Lamb said, he said, sometimes it's coach speak. He said, if we can hold Bashal Tootin to 150 yards rushing, we'll be doing good. But this is a team that gives up 130 yards rushing a game. So could Bashal Tootin get 150 yards? Maybe. He's got 10 straight games of 100 yards or more, but I don't know. That'll be a tough task. Jalen Fowler, the quarterback's played well lately, but he's not 100%. But that offensive line for A&T is really, really good. Got a lot of really good receivers as well, led by Zach Leslie and others. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. I want to see how A&T can attack the running defense, the rush defense of Gardner Webb. When I look at Gardner Webb from a defensive perspective, as I mentioned, they look to stop the run. Now, Gardner Webb is also susceptible to the pass as well. So there's some opportunities for A&T right there, but you got to get the Jalen Fowler that's played well over the last 4 or 5 ball games as opposed to the Jalen Fowler towards the beginning of the season. So as for prediction, of course, I got to recuse myself because I will be calling the game, but I expect it to be an outstanding football game. Listen, the Big South is, 6 teams in the Big South with A&T leaving and Campbell. So Big South in a little bit of trouble, like we talked about with the MEAC going forward. But what if it doesn't work out for the Big South moving forward? What a way to end, if it's the end football wise, we never know. But if it is, to end with a Big South championship between 2 undefeated Big South opponents. So that's going to wrap it up for me for today's HBCU Football Daily Podcast. Sorry we missed you the last couple of days. We're back. We're going to be back on Monday. If you've missed any of our podcasts over the last couple of years, you can log onto our website, BOXTOROW.com. You can also find us at iHeartMedia.com and wherever you get your podcasts, and also on the Box to Row YouTube page. Enjoy the game you'll be watching. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk with you on Monday.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast. You can also listen to the podcast at BOXTOROW.com, iHeartMedia, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to get your HBCU football fix on Box to Row with Donal Ware each weekend on the radio station near you, and on SiriusXM on HBCU, Channel 142, and on ESPNU Radio on SiriusXM, Channel 84. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Box to Row for the latest in HBCU football, and don't forget to tell a friend.